Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Everyday Health Stories, the podcast where we explore the fascinating world of medical science through the power of storytelling. Each week, we bring you compelling science and simple strategies that can help you take control of your health one step at a time. If this is your first time joining us, hit pause for a moment and click on follow or subscribe, depending on where you're listening. That way, you'll get notified of new episodes, gain access to exclusive content, and join a community that's making positive changes, one story at a time. Dr. Reddy, today we're diving into something that's at the very core of your health, quite literally at the cellular level. We're talking about mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses inside nearly every cell in your body.
That's right, Anna. Mitochondria have been getting a lot of attention lately, and for good reason. They're connected to everything from energy levels to aging and disease.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Reddy, can you explain what exactly mitochondria are for our listeners?
Mitochondria are small structures inside our cells that generate most of the chemical energy needed to power the cell's biochemical reactions. Think of them as tiny power plants. Without mitochondria, we couldn't move, breathe, or think. They convert the food we eat into an energy currency called ATP that cells can use.
So they're basically the batteries that keep us running?
That's a good analogy, but they're actually more like power generators than batteries. And what's fascinating is that they were once independent organisms that, over billions of years of evolution, became integrated into our cells. They even have their own DNA, separate from the DNA in our cell nucleus.
That's incredible. So why are we hearing so much about mitochondria now? What's changed in our understanding?
What's changed is our recognition that mitochondria do far more than just produce energy. They're involved in cell signaling, controlling cell growth and death, and even immune function. And when they don't work properly, what we call mitochondrial dysfunction, it can contribute to a wide range of diseases.
And that brings us to today's story, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I want to share a story that recently made headlines, but also highlights the incredible progress we're making in understanding and treating mitochondrial diseases. It's about a young man named Prince Frederik of Nassau in Luxembourg, who sadly passed away in March of this year at just 22 years of age due to complications from a mitochondrial disease.
That's heartbreaking. He was so young.
It truly is. Prince Frederik had a condition caused by mutations in what's called the POLG gene. This gene is crucial because it regulates the production of an enzyme called DNA polymerase gamma, which is responsible for copying mitochondrial DNA. Without properly functioning POLG, the mitochondria can't replicate their DNA correctly, and they fail to provide cells with the energy they need.
So what happens when someone has this condition?
These POLG mutations can cause a spectrum of diseases that vary in severity. In young children, they can quickly lead to brain damage and life-threatening liver problems. Others, like Prince Frederik, might develop symptoms later in childhood or adolescence, including muscle weakness, epilepsy, and organ failure. The challenge with mitochondrial diseases is that they can affect any organ that requires a lot of energy, particularly the brain, heart, muscles, and liver.
It sounds devastating. Are there treatments available?
Until recently, treatments have been largely supportive, managing symptoms rather than addressing the underlying cause. But there's been a remarkable breakthrough that gives hope to families affected by these conditions.
Tell us about this breakthrough.
Researchers at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden have identified a molecule called PZLA that can actually restore the function of mutated DNA polymerase gamma and improve the synthesis of mitochondrial DNA in cells from patients with these conditions.
That sounds like a game changer.
It truly is. This is the first time scientists have demonstrated that a small molecule can help improve the function of defective DNA polymerase. The research team, led by Professors Maria Falkenberg and Klaus Gustafsson, spent over 20 years on this work. One of their doctoral students, Sebastian Valenzuela, analyzed exactly where the molecule binds to the enzyme, which helps us understand how to influence it.
20 years of research. That's dedication. Where does this research stand now?
A company called Pretzel Therapeutics is preparing to begin phase 1 clinical trials with a refined version of the molecule to test its safety in healthy volunteers. If successful, this could lead to the first effective treatment for these devastating mitochondrial diseases. And what's particularly exciting is that this approach might have broader applications for other conditions where mitochondrial dysfunction plays a role.
Like what other conditions?
That's where this gets really interesting for our listeners. Mitochondrial dysfunction isn't just involved in rare genetic disorders. It's increasingly being linked to common conditions like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, certain cancers, and even the aging process itself.
Wait, so problems with our mitochondria might contribute to aging?
Yes, the mitochondrial theory of aging suggests that as we get older, our mitochondria accumulate damage and become less efficient. This creates a cycle where dysfunctional mitochondria produce more harmful free radicals, causing further damage to cells and tissues, essentially accelerating the aging process.
So if we could protect or improve our mitochondrial function, we might be able to slow aging and prevent disease?
That's the exciting possibility that researchers are exploring. And there's more. Mitochondrial dysfunction doesn't just affect aging. We're now seeing connections between these cellular powerhouses and a wide range of common health issues that people face every day.
Dr. Reddy, that's fascinating. Let's talk more about common conditions or symptoms our listeners can relate to or might be experiencing that could be linked to mitochondrial dysfunction.
Absolutely. We're discovering that issues like persistent fatigue, brain fog, and even migraines may have mitochondrial roots. These cells power almost everything in our bodies. So when mitochondria aren't working properly, the effects can show up in surprising ways.
That makes sense. So we're not just talking about rare diseases anymore?
Not at all. For instance, mitochondria are now being linked to Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, where energy failure in brain cells contributes to cognitive decline and motor symptoms. In fact, many neurodegenerative diseases seem to have a mitochondrial component.
That's eye-opening. I've heard a lot of people mention brain fog or chronic fatigue. Could those be tied to mitochondria too?
Very likely. In chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, there's growing evidence that impaired mitochondrial energy production could play a role. Even common struggles like exercise intolerance, muscle weakness, or cold sensitivity may stem from poor mitochondrial performance.
That really brings it close to home. What about metabolic or heart issues?
Great question. In type 2 diabetes, for example, mitochondria help regulate glucose processing and insulin sensitivity. If they're not functioning well, it can lead to insulin resistance. And since the heart is one of the most energy-demanding organs, mitochondrial dysfunction can also contribute to heart failure and cardiomyopathy.
So it's not just about energy. Mitochondria are deeply tied to chronic disease.
Exactly. Even some autoimmune disorders, like lupus or multiple sclerosis, may involve mitochondrial dysfunction, where damaged mitochondria release signals that trigger abnormal immune responses.
That really puts things into perspective. Given how many health issues might stem from mitochondrial problems, what can our listeners actually do to strengthen and protect their mitochondria?
Several strategies show promise. First, exercise is perhaps the most powerful mitochondrial medicine we have. Regular physical activity, especially high-intensity interval training, stimulates the creation of new mitochondria, a process called mitochondrial biogenesis.
That's another good reason to get moving.
Absolutely. Dietary approaches matter too. Intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating may promote mitochondrial health through a process called mitophagy, where damaged mitochondria are cleared away. Certain nutrients are also important for mitochondrial function, including CoQ10, B vitamins, magnesium, and omega-3 fatty acids.
Are there supplements specifically for mitochondrial health?
Yes, there are several compounds being studied. One group includes precursors to NAD+, that's short for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. These include NMN, which stands for nicotinamide mononucleotide, and NR, or nicotinamide riboside. They're getting a lot of attention because levels of NAD+ naturally decline with age, and this molecule is essential for mitochondrial function. Other compounds like pyrroloquinoline quinone, or PQQ, resveratrol, and berberine may also support mitochondrial health, though more research is needed to fully understand how they work.
This is very interesting, Dr. Reddy. It seems like mitochondria are at the intersection of so many aspects of health.
They truly are. I think of mitochondria as the canaries in the coal mine for our overall health. When they're functioning well, we have energy, resilience, and better aging trajectories. When they're compromised, we see fatigue, accelerated aging, and increased disease risk.
Dr. Reddy, this has been such an eye-opening look into how our cells make and use energy, and how that affects almost every part of our health. It's amazing to think that something so small inside our bodies could be connected to both disease and aging. Thank you for breaking it down in a way that's easy to understand.
It's been a real privilege to share this. The science around mitochondria is always moving forward, and we're learning more every day. But one thing stays the same. When we understand how our cells work, especially these tiny powerhouses that give us energy, we can start making better choices for our bodies. Whether it's preventing disease, slowing down aging, or simply having more energy to enjoy life, it all begins at the cellular level. And that's where real health starts.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Everyday Health Stories. We hope this episode has sparked your curiosity about the role mitochondria play in your health. Don't forget to subscribe for more explorations into the cutting edge of health and wellness. If you found this discussion intriguing, please share it with anyone who's interested in energy levels, aging, or the cellular foundations of health.
As always, the information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making significant changes to your health regimen or trying new supplements.
Until next time, move your body, nourish your cells, and stay curious about the microscopic processes that keep you thriving. Bye for now.